So welcome to our class. This is Ethics in the I Ching, Constancy of Character, and my name is Peter Shea, and I'll be the course instructor, and I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I also have been teaching a lot of different acupuncture aspects, and I have been working with the I Ching since probably 2001 or something like that. Right now it's about 2015. I wouldn't say about, it is 2015. So about 14 years of working with the I Ching. And probably from about 2003 when I got out of acupuncture school until a couple years ago, I was really working with the I Ching quite often. And it was, I had an innate interest, and I found that the best way to understand the I Ching for me was just to get out there and use it. And the most common way of using the I Ching is to cast it with coins. There's yarrow stalks in different ways. You're probably familiar with the coins. And then you get a reading, one of 64 commentaries, the hexagrams or the situations of the I Ching. And over time, you started you begin to internalize the messages of the I Ching. And generally, it can be used as an oracle, it's an astrological system, it can really be a template for anything. It's used in acupuncture, perhaps maybe the foundation of the acupuncture meridians, how the 6 lines turn into the 12 meridians, and whatnot. So it's a deep ripe area for study, and it's one that I chose to embark on. And at one point, after using it for several years to kind of guide myself in bouncing questions off the I Ching as to where I should set up my practice, things like that. I also one day decided I wanted to kind of get a big picture of what types of I Ching resources there were. So I remember having like a dozen I Ching books loaded in my Amazon.com cart and thinking, oh my God, this is such a, questionable thing to be doing, Shen disturbed, as we say in Chinese medicine. So I said, sleep on it, let it wait for 24 hours, and I don't know if I made it 24 hours, but I let a little time rest, and I said, this is something I'm curious about. So I hit send, got all these copies of the I Ching in the mail. It was pretty exciting. I found out quickly, like half of them didn't speak to me. They seemed irrelevant as far as material that I could find useful at that point in my practice. And the other 6 were pretty cool. And then I eventually got it down to about 3 that I actively would use. And really nothing against or for the other ones. A lot of them I did spend some time with. So I got it down to using about 3 versions of the I Ching to kind of provide me with the sounding board of the material that I would need for my I Ching practice. So that sort of leads us up to where we're at for this class. For this class, we're using the I Ching to develop a little bit of perspective, to reflect upon ethical matters. And the I Ching, as we said, it can be used for other things, but one of its main things is to provide this sort of counsel for our behavior and how to align our behavior with our intentions, kind of aligning the yin and wei, the internal and the external, the motivation and the feeling with the action. So that's what we're going to discuss, trying to help you explore the I Ching from that perspective. It's a very gentle perspective. It doesn't have to bring in a whole lot of esoterica. It doesn't have to bring in a whole lot of religious systems. The I Ching is definitely a spiritual tool, and at some point, extensive use of the I Ching becomes a spiritual practice. That's kind of the matter for a different class. Right now, we want to work at it for helping to get to know ourselves better and helping us understand our own moral compass, our own axis of integrity, our center. So in the very first part of this book, we're going to go through terms for Western ethics, and we have the basic terms that we would use: values, codes, laws, regulations, and look at how those relate, just to kind of remind us of these things that we've probably learned in other ethics classes. And ultimately, we want to be able to apply this to our profession. Right now, laws and professional ethics really, well, professional ethics sometimes bring in more, but laws and regulations are really the bare minimum expected of our behavior for the safety of the general public. So if all you're trying to do is abide by the law, then you are really kind of using the outside world to dictate your growth. And that we need that to happen, and we should be able to abide by the laws, but that's not where it ends. It's really a starting point for how we can kind of align our internal value system with our external behavior for the betterment of ourselves, the betterment of our patients, and the betterment of our profession, at large. So that's going to be chapter 1, and then the second half of that chapter is going to have definitions regarding some of the psychological aspects of ethics. And these are where I feel like the I Ching becomes a very strong assistant, a strong tool that we can use for our own guidance. So these are issues like transference, countertransference, and boundaries, how repressed material and unclaimed material winds up being projected onto someone else. And this happens all the time. It can be severe where we are really taking a strong role model from childhood that we may have had not the smoothest relationship with, and now we project it onto everybody. That's a matter for, kind of a little outside my scope of practice. That would be more for psychological counseling. But to some extent, we're doing this all day, every day, just projecting, and we're also being projected upon. And sometimes if we identify with what people project upon us, then we also start to behave differently. It can adversely affect our behavior. So those are boundary issues, and those boundaries are it's a broad subject where we have our physical boundaries, we have legal boundaries, but it gets subtler and subtler. And as practitioners of acupuncture or body work, we really are some of the front line of where subtle energy and physical energy intersect. So we want refinement there, and you can use the tool of the I Ching to help you find your center, have you reflect upon something long enough to help claim some of your habitual reactions, your knee-jerk reactions, some of your, you might have done the right behavior, but you may have done it from an autopilot setting, and then within that autopilot setting, maybe motivations that you're not even aware of. Motivations based on just mere survival, safety, self-gratification, protection of your ego. Some of these things natural and necessary, but when out of balance can be, again, less than desirable, less than optimal behavior. So that'll be where the first section leaves off. We are going to create a nice little Western framework and prepare us for taking that a little bit more specifically into the I Ching and to Eastern medicine in the following chapters. At the end of chapter 1, we also have the Hippocratic Oath, and we have the NAQAM Code of Ethics for acupuncturists. Hopefully at some point I'll add the one for massage and bodywork, as this class will also qualify for continuing education for massage and bodywork therapists. So thank you, and we'll see you again in section 2.